All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of the R+Git workflow workshops for 2022. I am going to post the link to the workshop website in the chat. Oops. Back there. Okay. There's the workshop. What? Oh, sorry. That is not the workshop website. That will get you there. Oh, come on. Okay. Right there. There we go. Okay. In the chat is the link to the material for today. And when you go there, you'll see up in the top corner this R workflow workshop link. That will take you to this main page that I'm on. And on the main page, you're going to see a couple key things. If you're sharing this with someone, and you're welcome to invite other people, you'll see the link to join the WebEx. I found out I have plenty of room on this WebEx, so I'm not worried about running into a limit there. So feel free to share with whichever colleagues you want. They can be outside of NOAA, that's fine. Okay, and then the other navigation thing is when you scroll down, you'll see each week's topics, and I have video recordings for each week and detailed notes on what I talked about. So if you go onto here, what you'll see is, sorry, if you go up to the top, you'll see like a link with lecture notes. And then when I get the video, I'll put the video here. And then I'll often add some extra videos or notes based on discussions that came up after the lecture. So the format is I'm going to give a lecture. It's going to be about 50 minutes. And then I'll stay on for half hour. Feel free to just ask whatever questions you want. One more logistic thing. In the chat, feel free to throw your questions in there, and please, anyone who knows the answer can help out. Feel free to jump in there. I'll try to watch, but just given the number of participants and that I'm lecturing, I might not catch it. So okay, so I'm going to post the link in here. Again, this is for today's material. I'll go over here. This is where week 2. Okay, so week 2 is focused on mainly on, well, I'm going to go over a few more Git skills. And then the second half is going to be focused on some key GitHub features for you. Now, my focus in these workshops is really practical skills. When I was first learning to work with Git, I really was pulling my hair out. I couldn't understand why people like me at work. So I'm a research scientist, I'm working on sort of projects with data and, writing, and, they'll often involve code. And my colleagues like me were using Git and GitHub all the time, and they just raved about it. I was like, I can't understand it. I'm just like, I keep like just wasting time on there. Like, that's not my job to become like a Git like guru and have to learn this new skill. Why are you guys so much better at this? And then I sat down and I grabbed a colleague and said, look, let me just sit next to you and watch you. Like, you don't have to teach me. I just want to watch what you do and see why you find this so easy. And then once I did that, I was like, oh my God, I was doing it all wrong. I was making it way more complicated. So if you look at week 1, I show you the 4 basic skills that you need, and that's basically it. in terms of the skills. For these workshops, I'm going to be using GitHub Desktop. But I add videos there if you use different platforms. I'll show you how to, do the same skills from the shell, from RStudio, from Visual Studio Code. That's a real popular one too. But for these workshops, I'm going to use RStudio Desktop. It's really a simple one. It's one I use just because I'm on GitHub all the time and I have to manage really like hundreds of repositories. It just makes it a lot faster for me. So today I'm going to go into some basic skills for working with branches and reverting changes and dealing with merge conflicts. And these are things that, well, particularly the branches, that's something that I recommend, you don't jump into right as a beginner. You don't need to. Get your basic skills from week 1 down, get some experience doing that and sort of get that into your habits and into sort of into automatic. Because, whenever you're learning a new skill, you want to try to have to like be sort of remembering everything as little as possible as you're learning. So get the basics down, and then if you need to, you can use branches. Many scientists actually don't need branches. Okay, so branches 101. So when would you use branches? So a really common case where we need to use branches is that we are delivering a product on GitHub and we need to have the main branch. So when I go on to GitHub and you see it says main here, this here, if I needed this public facing version to always be functional. And as I said, a really common use case if you're an R programmer or say a Python programmer and you are delivering a package, it's pretty common that people will deliver these from GitHub and they deliver it from the main branch. And that's a use case where you definitely would have a branch. So what you'd want to do is you develop in kind of this parallel sort of world. And you can sort of break in that parallel world and then you merge back in. That's a really common case. But as you see, many people are not developing packages and won't have a use case where they need that main branch to be public facing and to be functional. But some of us are there, so let me show you some of the basics about branches. So first we're going to start with our basic skills. And there's really just 4 basic ones that you need. Create a branch and merge a branch back into main. So let's see it done. Okay, so and I'm going to use GitHub Desktop. So here's the repository we were using last week, test. I showed you that up on GitHub too here. So there's test. Okay. So I've opened this in GitHub Desktop. You can see, this is where you select what repository you're working in. I can look at the history. Let's see what I've got here. Yeah, I've added a few lines to my README. I added this script here. You can see, I can go here. I've added this README here. Great. Okay, so I can see what I've done here. And now let's say I want to do some work and I want to do this on a development branch. So how do I do that in GitHub Desktop? I'm going to go up here, just say new branch, give it a name. Let's call it development. What the heck? Create the branch. You can publish that or push that up to GitHub. I'm going to do that. It just depends on why you're developing this branch, but I'll often do it this way. Just go ahead and do that. Okay, great. So now if I were to go over to GitHub, I would see that this branch is there. So now what it is, I have the main version, And now I have this kind of parallel version that's my development branch. Now let's go over to test. I'm going to do this in RStudio. None of what I'm showing is RStudio centric. You could edit these files however you want, whatever platform you use to edit your files. You can see in RStudio, it's telling me over here in RStudio, this is how it shows me what branch I'm on. If you're using some other coding platform, it will have a different way to show you what branch you're on, but it will show you. If you're using something else to edit your files, let's say on your repository you were editing with, say, Excel, because you had Excel files, it's not going to show you what branch you're on. So you have to kind of keep track in your head where you are. This is the key thing. Whenever you're working with branches, you need to know if you're on the branch or not. And I'll explain why in just a moment. So I'm in RStudio, it tells me I'm here, and let's go ahead and make a change. So here's my change. What I want to do is I want to make this a function. So that was my change. I'm going to save that. I'm going to hop over to RStudio and commit this. For those of you, sorry, I'm going to switch over to GitHub Desktop and commit this. For those of you who use RStudio, you know that I could do this in RStudio, but in this workshop, I'm just showing things using GitHub Desktop. So I'm over here. Let's make sure I know where I am. I'm on the development branch. Okay, here's hello, and that's the change. So let's just put a thing here, make hello a function. Commit. Okay, and push up to origin means I'm pushing those change up to GitHub. And when I do this, I'm pushing it up to this development branch. All right, so this is skill 1. I've created a branch and I've made some changes on that branch. Let's go look over here, and I'm going to switch back and forth between branches. Here, I'm on the development branch. You can see here, and if you look here from GitHub Desktop, I'm also on the development branch. When I'm on that, you see this is a function. Let's switch branches. Again, I'm going to be doing all this from GitHub Desktop. So, oops, sorry. So I switch from here, and I switch back to main. And now, if I go look at hello, it's not a function. That's because on the main branch, I haven't made that change. It's only happening on the development branch. So now what we would maybe want to do is say we finished our work on the development branch, and what we'd like to do is merge those changes back into the main branch. Let's go do that. Oops, not there. Okay, so I'm going to do this from GitHub Desktop. The way you do this in GitHub Desktop is first you're going to get onto the branch, the main branch, and then you go up here, branch, and it says merge into current branch, and you say what branch you want to merge into main. I want to merge my changes from development into main. So this is going to merge every change that I've made on that development branch into main. So there we go, commit. All right, so I'm still on main. If we go into history, there we go. Now we see in our history, we have this new commit, and this is the thing that came over from the development branch. If I had made multiple commits on that development branch, you would see them all listed here. This little arrow here is just telling us that we haven't pushed this change up to GitHub. So if we went on to GitHub right now, we wouldn't see this on our main branch yet. We see it locally. Let's check that out. So locally, where am I? Okay, yep, I'm on the main branch. And now this is a function. So it's there. So let's go ahead and push that up to GitHub. Okay, so where am I? Okay, so those are skills 1 and 2. Okay, yeah, so that's a good question. So somebody asked, what if there are changes on the branch that you didn't want on the main? So let's bring that up after the lecture. I'll touch on that a little bit in a moment. Yeah, so something that, yeah, you want to merge some, but not all. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a common thing, especially when you're starting. And that you're getting into a workflow that as you get more experience, you will change the way you work, so you don't have to do that so often. But after the lecture, I'll show you how to do what you're saying, and I've also added some notes below. Okay, so skill 3. Another thing that sometimes happens is that we have some changes on main that we'd like to pull into our branch. Now, I put a little note here that doing this is a common way to run into merge conflicts. It happens to us, but you will learn to be a little more careful about doing this, because you will run into merge conflicts. But it happens. So let me show you how you do that. So where am I? Let's make sure what branch I'm on. I'm on the main, and here I am on main. Okay, so let's say if I were on main and I had a change here on my README. I was doing some cleanup. I'm just going to get rid of this. So I've cleaned this. Let's hop back over to GitHub desktop. You can see where am I? I'm on main, and on main I've got this change here. So let's just say cleanup. Commit that. Okay. Right. Yes. So I've done that on main, but if I were to hop back over to development, and if we look here, so now I'm on development, you see that change is still there. And let's say, well, for whatever reason, I want to keep my branch up to date with the main. So in GitHub desktop, how you do that is you'd switch to your branch, and then you go here and you just say update from main. Doom. Now, if I look at the history, you can see that cleanup is appearing here. So that's how I do skill 3. The last skill is deleting a branch. So having these long branches that, you kind of like do some work on, and you pick little changes, oh, I just want to pick that change out and merge into my main branch. That's going to be an inefficient workflow. More efficient is you create a branch, you decide what task you're doing on that branch, you do that task, you merge it back into main, and you delete the branch. Okay, that's going to be a more robust and efficient way to work. So we are often deleting our branches. So let's delete this. So I get onto the branch, and then I say delete. And I can say here, yes, delete this branch on the remote. So what that's saying is, do I want to delete this on GitHub also? And I would say yes. Typically do that, just sort of keep things nice and clean. Okay, and now when we look here, that branch is gone. Yep, so I finished my work on development, merged it in, and I deleted it. Yep. So someone asked, can you give examples of when you specifically use branches? So I use branches on, I would say, maybe 3 of the maybe 100 repositories that I manage and work with. So for example, all the content that you see today here, this is all being done on a GitHub repository that I'm pushing up to GitHub, and then GitHub is actually delivering this content to you. It just creates this website for you. I don't use branches on this. I don't need to. I'm just pushing up to main. So the case where I will be using branches is my use case where I need that repository to be kind of, it needs to be functional. It needs to, yeah, I mean, it's a product. So here's an example. Go here, organizations. Okay, there we go. So this is my most public product. This is on CRAN. It's really heavily used. It's for multivariate time series analysis. I need this main branch to always be functional. People are going to be installing from this main page. If you go down here, you can see it's got some installation instructions. Actually, my instructions install from a release, which I'll show you in just the second half how to do that. But often we're installing just from here. So I always need this to be clean. The second thing is also in this product, there'll be situations where I'm trying out something that may be bad, like I may really break things, and I may decide, oh, I don't want to do that at all. So you'll see in this case, I do have branches, but you'll notice one thing about these is that they're not tending to be just sort of let's do everything kind of branch. They have specific purposes. So, this one I'm working on a latex function. So it has a purpose. When I get done with that, I'm going to merge it back in. So, for some of these are fairly stale, but these two are things I'm working on a specific thing. So that's for me a common case. And then I gave you in the beginning a really common use case where somebody is delivering a product on the main, so that needs to be functional, and then they're developing on a branch called develop, and then periodically they're going to merge the develop changes back into main. So when they merge it back into main, that'll be like a new release. So that's a common use case. Okay, so I want to show you why beginners often really run into headaches with branches. And I showed a little cartoon on week 1 where somebody's saying, oh yeah, if you run into troubles, yeah, just delete your repository and pull it back in from GitHub. And people working with branches, this is often when that cartoon will be very true for them. And let me show you why that's happening. So when you start working with branches, it's really easy. Well, the natural thing is to think that, well, you're working in the branch is like this parallel hidden folder. So you always have your main folder, and then you move into this sort of shadow hidden folder and do your things there, but the main one is staying there. Okay. And then they sort of imagine, well, okay, if I'm sort of let's say I'm working in our studio, and oh, this isn't going to work. I just deleted my branch. Let me create my branch again here. Sorry, branch, new branch. New branch. Okay. So, yep, I'm on development. Okay, great. on development here. A change. Sorry, I need to create my branch again. Back. Okay. All right. So now I'm on my branch to development. It's got to change. It's not on main, right? So when you start, you think about like, oh, well, I'm in, let's say I'm in our studio, and when I'm here and I switch over to main, now I'm on the main branch, and they kind of imagine, oh, well, I've shifted over to the main folder. And now if I do this, if I switch branches, I switch onto development, you're thinking, oh, I've just sort of like within our studio, I have switched into kind of the shadow development folder, and I'm working over in that little sandbox, but main is still there. Okay, so that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So there is one folder on your computer. There is one folder with your files in there. There's only one. There are no shadow branch folders. What is happening when you switch branches? It is actually changing the files on your computer in that folder. It is actually changing them. So if I go here and I delete this, yes, I delete it. I'm going to delete this one. Yes. Okay, I'm going to commit that change. Yep, it's deleted. Okay. So I'm on the development branch. Okay, it didn't delete it in some shadow little folder. It is deleted in my file system. If I go on to into the folder, it's in GitHub test, they're gone. This is what confuses beginners. They go here and they think, no, I switched into the branch within our studio. I was just switching into that shadow folder. What did it do? It deleted my files. And then so they then close our studio and they close GitHub desktop, and they cannot for the life of them figure out how to recover the files that get deleted. Like, why did it delete them? I didn't touch this folder, but you did. That is exactly what the branch does. It changes your folder. And the instructions for where it's at and how to get those back are in that hidden Git folder. So this is why, like what I was saying, like when you're a beginner, like it's good not to start with branches because it's a little confusing. Once you get more experience, it'll be you'll learn how to use branches, but it will take some time just sort of getting used to this. Now, if I go back here, let's go back and let's watch what happens when I switch back to main. Okay, I've switched back to main. So those files came back. And if I go into the folder, and here they are again. So they're back. Okay. So this is why I said, when you start using branches, you must always know what branch you're on. And when I say on, you haven't switched into some hidden folder, you have changed the file status. And that is why if I switch branches here, it's like, oh, wow, how did, and I go over to RStudio, you're like, wait, how'd that happen? I didn't switch here. How did RStudio, quote unquote, know? Well, it doesn't know. It's RStudio is looking at the folder status, and it changed. So every single thing that you were to open this repository under would show that you are on the development branch, because that is the status of this folder here. Okay. So let's see, lots of questions. Hopefully, yes, thank you, please. There's kind of too much for me to go in. Thanks, Josh, for answering those. Okay. Yes, thanks. Yes. And Josh brought up a really good point here about like not having merge conflicts when you've got branches. And that is communication. You when you're working with somebody else and you're collaborating, especially when you're using branches or you're working on the same code, you need to communicate and about what's going on and about like order of merging things together so you don't clobber each other. Okay, it's now 10:30. So I am going to very quickly show you how to get rid of changes you've made in GitHub, and then I'll refer you, to the other material. I'm not going to go into depths in. So let's just see like how you would get rid of changes. So where am I? I'm on development branch. Okay, fine. Okay. I'm going to merge. Okay. Okay. So let's go here and see if I wanted to get rid of something. And so I made this change here. I'm in the history. I'm on the main branch. I want to get rid of it. In GitHub Desktop, you would right click and you just say revert, and it's going to get rid of that change. So there. And then if I want to get rid of more, I just sort of work backwards and I start from the top and just sort of revert. That's a really safe way to do it. You're not going to run into problems. If you decide later, hey, I didn't like that, you can just revert your revert. That's how I would suggest doing it. If you search around on Stack Overflow, you're going to see things that talk about using git reset. I warn you, git reset is a recipe for spending your whole day trying to recover your repository. And that is why if you go into Stack Overflow, you will see lots and lots of questions about, I did this and now I don't know how to recover things. So, but if you don't do that, if you just use reverts, that will, yeah, that won't cause problems. Okay. So, I put some notes here on how to recover a single file. That's often a really common question somebody will ask me, like, how do I do that? And so I gave you the instructions here. I'm pausing a little because, as somebody who teaches this, I feel like I ought to show you the git checkout commands. But in truth, like if I were actually working, like I have work to do. Going around and trying to remember all the syntax and then if I mess it up, creating a headache. I just don't have time for that, and I'm not unusual here. So the kind of the real way that we would often do that is, say if I just needed to recover one file. So I'll show you real quick. You'll see that this takes like, 30 seconds. Repository. Okay. So often what I would do is I would go here and I'd be like, which one is it that I need? Oh yeah, I remember it was about that day. And then I use this to go look at the repository at that point in history, find this file. Okay, is that the status, the state I want? Yeah, that is. Oh, cool. Great. I found it. Then I'm going to hit fine. Raw. I'm going to copy that. And then I just go into my main and copy it into the file that I want. So I search back in history, find out what I want to recover a file. And I'm going to be able to do that in less than a minute. Whereas if I go and do git checkout, which is literally doing basically the same thing, that's going to take me 5 times longer. So that's just your practical skill there, and using, the features of GitHub. Okay, so last thing, 10:35. So last thing, I just want to alert you to the commands that tend to get beginners when they start hopping onto the command line and messing around. Like if you go into Stack Overflow and you see the suggestions, you're going to see them using commands like git reset and git checkout. Those often are the ones that get your repository in a state that when you're beginning, it's really not going to be obvious how to get it back to where you want. And so what I would say, if you do that, if you know someone who uses Git a lot, just ask them, because they can show you very quickly how to recover things. But the key commands that are going to save you are: one, always git status. That's always the first thing you want to run if you're like, what did I do? It's a do git status, like, where am I? And then this thing, git ref log, shows you everything that's kind of happened, and that's how you sort of troubleshoot, say, things if you've run like git reset and git checkout and have gotten yourself lost. Okay, but if you stay away from those commands, then it's very uncommon to get yourself lost. All right, so now I want to go, and the last 20 minutes here, let's jump in and learn the key GitHub skills. So the number one is that's going to make you way more efficient if you use this, are issues. Let's go back over here. So now I'm really switching gear. I'm not talking about Git really. I'm talking about the features that you're going to see on GitHub. So I'm going to jump here. I'm in my repository. I've just been navigating around by clicking this test up here. So here's my files. We have this thing called issues. And here, it's a way that you can track things you need to do. So instead of keeping it in your head, you write a little issue. So, clean up the, add more material to README. And then, the collaborator names. So those of us who are working a lot on repositories, we're using issues all the time. Like anytime something pops into your head, put it there. Definitely, if you run into a bug in your code, do not think, oh, I'll remember that. Oh, no, don't do that. Just jump on, create an issue, put in, the code that caused the bug, whatever information. And then when you come back a week later, you're going to remember, oh, wow, that's right. Okay. So these issue features going to save you tons of time. So you're always going to find them up here. And then you can, add comments as you think of things, so you're going to have all your notes here in one place on your repository. When you're done, you can close it. When we're collaborating with people, we can also add assignees. Kind of depends on what you're doing, if that is relevant for you. You can label things if you want. Again, depends on the context in which you're using this. On my, if I'm working on a package, I'm definitely labeling things as bug or documentation. The milestones, again, depends on the application. If I'm working on a package where I'm doing releases, definitely I use milestones. We're going to talk more about some of these other features of issues the next 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking more about project management, how you structure your your actual workflow, how you tackle a big complex project, and how you break things up into tasks. And I'll show you a few different frameworks that you can use, sort of Kanban, and then I'll have a session on Scrum, what's known as Scrum. It's just a way of a workflow of how you break things up, and I'll show you how to use GitHub features, the issues, for example, and project boards to do that. So you get a lot more practice in this in the next 2 weeks. Okay, so then once you get your issues on there, you're going to see them all listed out here. So go ahead, play around with those. They're really easy, really intuitive to use. A nice feature when you are working with, say, GitHub. I think it'll work with RStudio too. Definitely GitHub Desktop. I can make a change, and so add that there, here. And then when I go here, I can do, okay, it doesn't, I think I need to. Yeah, fetch. Okay. Come on, fetch. Okay, there we go. So I needed to fetch those issues from GitHub, but so I fetched it a little. But once you do that, then if you do $, see, it shows you that issue. And that can be kind of handy. You know, you'll know exactly how you fixed a particular problem. So you can do that. And then on GitHub, it'll be linked to that issue, which will be handy. Okay. So those are issues. Play around with that. Releases. For those of you who are creating products on GitHub, the release feature is really nice and super easy to use. You're just going to go here. And if, say, I wanted to bundle this up into something that someone could access and could install, I can go over here and create a release, and it's going to bundle the status of this code into something that someone could download or install or go to. Another cool feature about that is once you create a release, it's going to make it really easy to switch to the status of your repository at the date of that release. Okay. Another really great feature I've found on GitHub are these discussion boards. I'll show you an example of this. And actually, I'm going to go on to a real example rather than a fake one. Okay. I'm going to show you these organizations in just a moment. So there's this thing up here that says Teams. And actually, if you go there, it's a discussion board, despite the name of Teams. And so here's an example. This was an intern that I had last summer, and we did all our discussions in this discussion board. And it's really easy to link to your files, and, link to issues, but also like really easy just to, put images in here. And so the entire summer, like everything that we were talking about is all here. So rather than trying to navigate like endless email threads, which I, lose everything, it's all here. Our entire discussion is here. So every week we are putting this on here, and this is really nice because all the work was happening in this repository. I could use like a Google Doc, but then I'd have to be linking the Google Doc to the actual work. And here, the discussion thread is all right here. So like everything we were talking about, and I can search it. It's really great. So this is a nice feature. Encourage you to check that out. Another cool feature that you can enable show you. So if you're up on a repository, and you have to go into settings to enable this, but there's like a little wiki, and people often use this for like sort of documentation on a repository. And here's a case. This is from the NIMS OpenScapes Open Science organization I'm part of, and we use a wiki to just share information about, that's useful to our users. But it's a really fast, easy way to create some nice looking content for your repository. Again, not something you're going to use in all situations, but it's definitely good to know that it's available. Okay, so discussion boards, releases. Okay, GitHub organization. So let me talk a little bit about this feature. And when you're getting started, it's easy to think of like these organizations as something like really official, like it's an organization. No, it's not that official. It's basically, you can think about it as a separate area where multiple GitHub users can be collaborating on multiple different repositories. I personally use it to organize my work. So I don't want my teaching repositories that, has all the content for my website, all the content for anything I'm developing for students. I don't want that mixed in with the work that I do for, with NOAA fisheries for, say some status review report or something. These are really different work products. I also I have books and stuff that I work on. I don't want that mixed in with my teaching stuff or my stuff having to do with status review. So I separate that. So that's one thing. Another thing is that another use case, really common use case, is a GitHub organization is when we are delivering, our agency is delivering public products. So, for example, some say, science centers will have their organization, and then they have like all their official products there. So there's a lot of different types of organizations. Let me show you this in practice. So here's my organizations. So, this is one for University of Washington. These, I'm members of other people's organizations. So this is some UW eScience work. And if we go, let's go here. So this is, let's go here, R+ Tutorials. This is the organization for these workshops. And you can see I have, if we go to the repositories, I have everything that's just associated with my teaching. And then if I go over to, let's see, what's another one? NIMS OpenScapes. So this is an organization associated with the NOAA Fisheries Open Science group. You can see this one has a lot of different people who are involved with this. A nice thing here that I've done that you can do, you can kind of pin a little page so it looks a little more nicer entry. And you'll have all the features of like, discussion threads and stuff. And that's nice so that everyone involved in this organization can collaborate. This is a use case, these organizations, it's not going to apply to everyone, obviously, but when you're using GitHub for work, you're definitely going to be using organizations, because typically we're not going to have like an official work product in our private GitHub account. It's going to be associated with some GitHub organization for our work. In creating organizations, you can play around with that. It's you have to poke around. I didn't look it up ahead of time, but actually it might be just under organizations. They're really easy to create. You can create one. If you poke around enough, you'll figure it out, and then you can just delete it. Okay, let's see. I see there's a bunch of questions here. I hope folks are jumping in there. Okay, last one I want to show you, and we're going to cover a lot more about project boards in the next 2 weeks, because we're going to be just dive deep into project boards to learn some basic workflows, project management workflows, and we're going to use project boards to learn those. So as I said, we're going to learn how to do Kanban, and then the next week we'll learn Scrum. We'll be using this a lot. But let me show you basically if you want to play around with this. Let me hop on to repositories. So test. Okay, good. Okay. So I'm here. So when you're on a repository, you can click projects. So they're rolling out this new beta projects. I'll cover that in the next 2 weeks. But I actually typically use the old one. So you go down here. I find it a little unfortunate that the default is that it selects this. You have to like know to hop down there. So just do that. If you're starting, go ahead and just pick this basic one here. And you say new project, put a name. You have this template here. Let's do a beta. We're just going to start that. Okay. And what it does is it shows you, it is not a basic Kanban. Okay. So it shows you this board where you can kind of take notes on your work, and it makes it really easy to move like any issues that you have, but you can also, let's add a column here. Something like that. You create that. And then you can add notes on what you want to do. You know, fix the README. Ooh, why is that pausing there? Makes it really easy. Or in this add card, you can kind of grab this. I'm doing this really fast, and I think the best way to learn is just open one of these up and just start playing with it and figure out what works for you. So what I just did when I said add cards here, this was an issue. And then you can move it in here, and then you kind of see it. You look over here. Let me show you one quick real world example of how I am using project boards. Okay. And then I'm going to stop here. So as I said, Mars is this is a big project that I manage. And I'm in a situation where I kind of I'll have like really intense periods. I'm working on it and then I leave it for a while. And if I didn't use projects, I would be so inefficient because it'd be really hard for me to get up to speed when I come back to it. So I use projects to really document everything that needs to happen. So here's and so that I can leave it for a while, and when I come back, I know exactly what I need to do. So here's this milestone. This was a release that I was doing, and I've got, here the status of everything that needs to happen, all the issues that I was working on. These are my check things here. So I've got all those notes right here for me. Sometimes I'll also use this for really specific hard things I'm working on. So this has to do with, it's a fairly complex theoretical thing I have to do. And oh, it would be horrible if I like tried to keep this in my mind. I'd lose it. So I have all the details here, and I'll just write notes in here, and it's all right here in the repository. So again, another thing to check out, the next 2 weeks, we're going to dive much deeper into using project boards and using them in a real kind of some formal frameworks for how we do project management of complex projects. Okay, so that was a bit of whirlwind. Thanks, Josh, so much for working on the chat there. I will now stop and just kind of open it up to any questions that you have, and you can feel free to unmute also. Okay, so let me jump on here. Okay, yeah, so the one question was coming up there about these project beta. And as Josh noted, in the project's beta, you can track things across repositories. So let's hop over here. This is an organization that I collaborate on. It's for applied time series analysis. We have books and websites and courses and stuff. So we definitely have projects that are involving multiple repositories. And the beta project board is going to allow us to track things across multiple repositories. And what's useful here is like we can take issues that we've entered in separate repositories and we put them onto the same project board. So I have a feeling this is not going to be that interesting. Yeah. Okay, this is not that interesting. I would have to search a bit to find like a better real world case. But definitely, I do have projects where we're using that feature extensively. Okay, new messages, right? Yes, and as Josh noted, the teams, discussions, project issues, they all work together. So it's really easy to like link issues to your project boards. Let me show you also another like kind of fun thing with your issues. Okay. So I'm here. So just on that test repo, if I go in my issues, and let's say I'm going to create a plotting functions. Okay, so I have an issue that I want to create a whole bunch of plotting functions, and I'm going to use this to say plot adds, oops, and then plot subtract. So these are, let's say, two functions that I want to write. So I submit that, and now you see that it has a checkbox, and as I finish it, I can check them off, and it shows two tasks. It'll show when they're done. But nicely, what if I wanted to give some more details about this? I roll over and convert to an issue. And now that's going to be an issue. I can click on that. It appears as a new issue, and I can add details about it. I need to go to the dots over here to edit it. This function should do, X, Y, Z, whatever. I update that. And now when I go over to the issues, I'm going to see this new one here. So that's a pretty, using those little checkboxes, that's a really handy thing that we use all the time. But you don't have to use that. You can just use, the plain, plain issues. Okay, any other questions? As I said, feel free to unmute Okay, question about sending invitations to become a part of your organization. Yeah, let me show you how to do that. And there's something to be aware here. Okay, so over to organizations. So let's say I'm here. So this organization, if I want to invite people, I just go to people and then invite member and then type their name. That's it. They'll get an email to accept that invitation. They also, they could look up in these notifications and see that. You're going to see here on your board if there are failed invitations. What a failed invitation means is they didn't click that link in their email. And that's going to happen actually all the time. So you can resend the invitation. So that's something to be aware of if you're managing organizations. It's really easy for people to miss these invitations or it goes to spam or something. So you have to kind of keep track of that and resend the invitations. And then sometimes, you know, ping them individually. Hey. Okay, new messages. Okay, great. So early on, there was a question that I deferred. I said I'd bring it up in the questions afterwards. And that was, how do I pull in a single file that I have on a branch? I'm going to show you two ways to do this. So let's hop over here. Okay, so I'm on here. I want to see I'm on the main branch. Right, let's hop over to GitHub desktop. I'm on the main branch. I've made this little change here. I just want to commit this. Things will go better if I have everything committed. Okay. So now let's switch over to the development branch. We're going to go and make a couple changes on this development branch. So I'm back over RStudio. This is where I'm going to edit. I'm on the development branch. Okay. Remember, you always want to be aware where you are. I'm on the development branch. So, and that means all my files are in the development state. I'm not in some shadow folder somewhere. Okay, so let's go here and we're going to add, let me hop back over to main before I do this. Don't want to get myself lost here. Okay. So, okay, so you noticed I jumped over to main before I started working. I paused for a moment. This is always a good thing to do. This is like the real world. So think for a moment. I jumped over to main because I wanted to see if main was the same as development. And so I've got these files on main that are not on development. So I think what I'd like to do first is I'm going to jump over to development and I want to pull those changes in, update from main. Okay, so I did that. Look into history. Did it do it? Oh, goodness gracious, come on. Oh. Oh, come on, come on, come on. I have a bad feeling that it's, oh yeah, no, yep, okay, great. So it worked, yes. So here they are, they're back. Okay, so I updated from main. So now main and development are the same. I might also want to, if I were working, yeah, sort of Git real world, is I'd probably do Git run. I just opened the stat. This on branch development, nothing to commit, clean. It's not telling me that I'm behind anything. Okay, so all good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a change here, and I'm going to make a change to both add and hello. So the change I'm making here is going to make this a function. So that's that change. And then I'm going to go over to hello, and I'm going to add something here, paste hello. I just added, this. I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I want the name in here. Okay. So now I've made these two changes. Going to hop back over to GitHub Desktop. You see I'm still on development branch, all good. I'm going to commit both these changes. Fix the functions. Okay, so now I've got those two changes there. And if I were to merge development into main, it would bring in both those changes. So let's think about, like, okay, what if we only wanted to get in the hello, the changes from hello? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you this from GitHub Desktop rather than hopping over to RStudio. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to review repository. Yep. So under repository, I want to open this repository up in the terminal. I'm going to use this command called git checkout. And remember, I told you that git checkout is one of those commands that will often cause beginners trouble. So after this, I'm going to show you another way to do this. So let's do, so what git checkout is going to do is that it's going to take the version of a file on either a commit or on a branch. Let's take that version, and it's going to make the version on the current branch you're on the version of whatever is on that branch. So, okay, so knowing that, I realize, okay, so first thing I want to do is I need to get onto the main branch, because what I want is I want to be on main, and I want to grab the file that's on the development branch and make the main one look like that. So now I'm on main. Great. Let's just make sure we always git status as our friend. Git status where I'm. Okay, I'm on main. Great. Okay. So now the command is git checkout. Then I got to tell it what branch. And then I need to tell it what it is I want to check out. The kind of funny thing here is you have to show it your full path. And so dot is the repository location. And then what I want to check out is hello.r. So remember, checkout, it's basically saying, oh, hey, go look at branch, development branch, and get that file that's there and replace the one in my current branch with the version that's over on this branch. There we go. And now let's go look at hello. And remember, the change was that I added the name. I'm on the main branch. Why? Remember in the terminal, oh well, so when I was in GitHub, I switched to the main branch. So I'm on main branch. Aha, look, hello. Hello is now looks like it looked on development. What about add? Did add change? No, add did not change. It's still a script. Great, that's exactly what I wanted to have happen. If we go onto GitHub Desktop, we see we have this one change, and that is the change that hello.r has changed. And it did. I took the version from development and I made the version in main look like that. So there is a change. So I just want to now commit that. Add a name to hello function. There we go. So that's a really straightforward way to just pick one file from a branch and move it onto main. If you go on to like Stack Overflow, you're going to see discussions that this using checkout is not like a formal quote unquote merge. Nonetheless, using checkout is the way that many people would solve this is simply a really fast way to do it. Okay, I said I'd show you a second way. Okay, so I always pause here, as an instructor, I feel like I should be always showing you the Git commands, but I'm trying to be really practical here. And the fact of the matter is that for me personally, I want to work fast. And I don't want to accidentally mess up my repository. It's just going to waste time for me. And I don't want to have like all the Git syntax in my head that I don't just need there. Okay. I don't want to have to go, if I have to go look up how, remind myself from my notes how to use Git checkout, I wouldn't be so happy with that. So here's the practical way that I would kind of do it. This, by the way, is doing exactly what Git checkout is doing, exactly. But I don't have to remember the command. So what I would do, and I'm going to do this in RStudio, I'm going to show you exactly how I would personally do it. So I'm working in RStudio. I would switch, and let's say I wanted to get just the main one. I would just hop onto development. Okay. I would open up this. I've made this a function. Boom, copy. I would switch over to main dip. I'm in add, v, paste, save, done. And I didn't have to like look up the syntax for checkout and like make it, I didn't make any mistakes. I'm never going to make any mistakes with that. Took me, literally 15 seconds. So, yeah, that's what I would do personally. Okay. So more questions. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Somebody was asking about wikis. Issues versus wikis. Yeah, issues and wikis are really different. Josh kind of answered that. But if you look at them, you can see that. Let's go here where I've got a nice big wiki for you to check out. No, it's the OpenScapes one. Okay. And I have this on, it's associated with a particular public, yeah, it is a public repository. If you go into settings, that's where you're going to see that you can check this to have wikis. So you have to check that to see that little box there. And so issues, issues are just like, oh, I don't have any here, but issues are just like these, yeah, they're just sort of issues. It's not like you wouldn't ever have documentation there. It's not like a sort of like an online book or something. But a wiki is like, it's got the little book icon, and it is like a little book. You can just do new pages, add as many pages. Let's hop on to test, and we'll actually let's go to test, because then we can start our own little wiki here. Do it. Let's go to test here. Okay, so you can see I have the wiki. It was checked under settings. I start there. There's nothing there, so I create my first page. And so, welcome to Test Wiki. Excellent. So I got that. And I'm sorry. Pausing here because my buttons are covered by the things. Okay, so I have welcome here instead of, first page. Here we go. All right, save page. So yeah, you can see it's super easy. It's like very intuitive. You don't really have to learn anything. It's just going to be intuitive from the beginning. A nice feature of this is that, all the things from Markdown that we're used to are going to show up here. I can put in images, links, all that good stuff. Save page. Now, it's formatted in R Markdown. Sorry, not R Markdown, Markdown. Yes, the wiki is written in Markdown. Actually, I just noticed when I was on there that it said edit mode. Looks like you have a few different actual formats that you could write in. I'm always writing in Markdown, so I never noticed this, but you could write in some other types of Markdowns if you wanted. Syntax. Okay. Yeah, okay, I'm just sort of skimming back through the questions. Referencing specific spots in your code. Yeah, that's a neat feature. Let's go and do that. See if I have some that. Yeah, so that. So you can either copy the line, copy the permanent, or reference in a new issue. So so this is nice. Like if you're working with people and you need to show them, hey, here's where the problem is. Like, oops. Hey, come on here. Yeah. What am I doing wrong? You can select multiple lines somehow. I forget exactly. I'm doing the wrong thing here, but it's possible to select multiple lines. So anyhow, once you select this line, so, instead of saying, hey, it's line 1 where the problem is, you can make it faster. You do this, you look at their code and say, click on the dots here, reference in a new issue, boom, it shows up and say, hey, this is where the plot is going south. Okay. And it's referencing that. They can see exactly where it is. And here is my solution. Whatever. So I submit that. And now you can see in the issue, it shows the line and then the person can click that and it jumps right to that place. So that's a big efficiency tip if, yeah, collaborating with either other people or, collaborating with your future self. There's no question about what you were talking about. Another cool feature is that if I update the add.r, maybe I do a whole bunch more commits, it's going to keep track of where that was. It's going to still point it to this version here. New messages. Okay. Okay, different development. Yeah. Oh, so it's a question about Quarto. So yeah, as Josh said, it's new and upcoming. A really cool feature of Quarto is that it is language agnostic. So what does that mean when I'm saying like it's language agnostic? So if I make a R Markdown, I just jumped over to our studio here. If I were to create an R Markdown file here, or a Markdown file, and I run that, let's say R Markdown. So I run R Markdown file. If I were to knit that, so for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let's just create one here. Okay. So we're going to learn about this in the second 4 weeks. I'll introduce you to our Markdown. And so this is a way that you can combine Markdown sort of text content along with code. In this case, I'm doing R, but I could do Python, Java, whatever, different languages. It doesn't have to be R. But if I hit knit here, it wants me to save it. Fine, save. Okay. If I knit this is going through R. It's being run through R packages. So that is the sense in which this is sort of language specific. And R Markdown is super popular. It's not something that folks who like work in Python have, but people see how powerful R Markdown is. And the fact that when we work with R Markdown, this is all ASCII. Like it's just plain text. Super, super easy for us to do like version control. So like tracking of the changes. This is different than somebody who's like working in, say, a Jupyter notebook. Those aren't plain text. So it's much harder to do version control, sort of track your changes. And then, be able to just edit changes, say hopping onto GitHub. I could open this file on GitHub fine because it's just plain text. So people want to have like the R Markdown features, but not have it tied to R. And our studio's looking ahead and like, oh, okay, so we actually don't need to have this tied to R. So they created Quarto, which is not tied to a language. And so it has all the features of R Markdown, but you can use it for any language. And Quarto is also created by RStudio. It's not a different company. So my own view is, yeah, it's emerging, but eventually this is what we're going to be using is Quarto. The good thing is R Markdown is completely compatible with Quarto. You don't need to learn anything new. Don't feel like you need to change to Quarto now. You're going to be able to run your R Markdown files just fine in Quarto. Yeah. So it's not like a new thing. It's just like it's expanding R Markdown features to other languages and not having it tied to the R engine. Okay, great. Yeah, we're just about done here. I'm going to close this out in just a few more minutes. Any other questions? Pradeep, you mentioned a problem installing our Markdown from within our studio. So that's a so our Markdown is created by our studio, so you shouldn't have problems installing that. Sometimes what can happen there is that maybe you have an old version that you need to, get rid of, or it's something else about maybe how your libraries are set up, perhaps. I would try again. All right. Any other questions? So, final thing, I just say, yeah, go to the website for the course. I'll put up a video. I'll add more notes. And for those of you who are in NOAA fisheries, we have NIMS OpenScapes is our open science group. Josh London, who was helpfully answering questions for me, is involved in that. Also, if you go here, there we go, you're going to see this, and you'll see our user group. For those of you who are not within NOAA fisheries, you can still use our material here. Some of it is you can't get on unless you have it's on a Google Drive, so if you click it, you'll get a 404. But we try to put as much material as we can a public, so you can get onto it, and it'll be linked to repositories and stuff, so you can see that. Also, you can search our past events here. And those of you within NOAA, definitely check out our user group calendar. We're going to have a lot of different R user group events that show up there. And we'll also post the interagency, our user group events there. All right, everyone. Looks like the questions have wound down. I'm going to shut off the recording and close the meeting. Next week, as I said, we are going to really dive deep into project boards, and we'll start learning how to organize our work using what's called agile frameworks, which is as I'll start with Kanban, but then the week after that we'll learn Scrum, which is a really great way to organize your work and get more efficient with your work. Okay, recorder.